You're running a shop floor, not a Pinterest interest board or a fantasy football league. You don't need inspiration, you need things to work. So welcome to Build Your Way, a podcast from Cetec ERP. This is a show for manufacturers who are in it every day, from quoting and shipping jobs to troubleshooting quality and material shortages, all while staying a step ahead of what's next. We bring you stories from the field, lessons that stick, and strategies that actually scale to help you build better. Let's get to work.
Well, welcome back to the Cetec ERP podcast. Here we are. My name is Taylor Wagon. This is
Scott Ryan?
Today we're talking about, what are we talking about? Adolescence? Consulting?
Yeah, consulting. Adolescence.
Adolescence is a term that I don't know if everybody uses it. I often find myself describing companies as quote unquote adolescent. And Scott sometimes pushes back on that as maybe not useful or confusing or...
And I think, something that I think people are maybe resistant to self-identify as.
As an adolescent? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the way I think about it is, if you have like a new company, is you sort of, we're an infant, like what are we, we're just getting started here. I don't walk yet. I can't do much. And then eventually you grow, you get your feet, and you're in this state where you're changing and you're growing and you're moving around. And so you're going from infant to, mature and stable adolescent. And your point is that it sounds like you're in middle school, right? Like the world's most awkward time.
Yeah, and I think, I think there's a group of people who understand, like, this is our, like, there are points where, okay, you get bought by a PE firm, and they are buying an adolescent company, and they're going to infuse cash, define processes, and try to grow. But then you have a whole set of, I think this is maybe a larger group of manufacturers and small businesses, people who have been operating as an adolescent for 3 decades.
Yeah. So there's something where I guess maybe it's not just a transition point, where adolescence is like dynamic transition where we're really making changes rapidly here, but there's maybe you have not grown to the point of, what is that next level for your company? And I think we have some hallmarks that we use for, I'm going to keep using the term adolescent company, but whatever this type of company is, where they're usually missing some of the same pieces. And we're a software company, and we write ERP software for small and medium-sized manufacturers and occasionally distributors. And so we get to deal with a lot of these types of situations. They're a company that has grown to the point they need a system or they need a new system. And so we walk in and help them with that. And as a result, we find ourselves with companies that have a lot of those types of needs. So when we say adolescent, we're often referring to specifically process development.
Yeah.
I mean, most real. I think you could probably take a step back, and I personally believe that the single biggest missing thing in most small and medium companies is actually marketing. That's, I think, one of the harder things to learn to do. We clearly struggle with it. We're working on, like, what are the things that actually do effectively work? What are the things that don't? But that's a conversation I've had with a lot of people. And, like, how do you do that? How do you find the people who you want to work with, the people that you want to be your customers? And then how do they find you? It's like dating. Like, there's probably somebody there for you somewhere, buddy. But good luck. So that's not today's topic. We're not going to have a conversation about how does a small, medium-sized company even do marketing. Though in the future, I think we'll probably dive into that a couple different ways.
Yeah. I think where that term is helpful, at least as I think about it, is just like the maturation process of a business of, like, well, we have these pain points, and kind of accepting, like, okay, we're okay with business as it is, and, like, that's fine. If you have, one customer and you're not trying to grow, and, like, you play an important role in their supply chain, like,
Yep.
and like it's what you're doing is working great, fine. But there's then this other side of it. I think that it's like, well, we're stuck. We can't grow. We're trying to take on new customers, or our customers strapping us with this like new regulatory requirement. It's like, okay, CMMC and like the aerospace like security.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
that's growing. So like for you to maintain, even to stay the type of business that you are, and to be able to continue to compete in your world, you have to mature and grow. Yeah, yeah. You can't keep doing.
And that's the type of, I think, again, adolescence that we're looking for today, is talking about the hallmark of a company being process development and moving from, you know, for today's terms, you're an adolescent when your processes are defined mostly within people's heads. And so you have people with a lot of skill, a lot of internal knowledge. Tribal knowledge is the cliche version of saying that. And it happens because Kathy knows what to do with the invoices. We give them to Kathy. Kathy gets it done. And there's not a defined process. When Kathy's out, it'll wait for her when she gets back.
Kathy can't go on vacation.
Kathy go, Kathy ever gets hit by a bus, this company's gonna go broke.
It's on my Cetec consulting bingo card.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's garbage in, garbage out. Definitely on there. There's a couple CTEC bingo items. So, yeah, an adolescent company, processes are mostly internal. You're going on site. One, how long does it take you to realize that this company fits the profile?
It's pretty quick.
How quick? What's your number? Everybody has a number.
I think I'm probably slower than you. You've said like 10 minutes, I think.
I would say I usually know by the time I make it to the conference room.
Yeah. 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 Generally, by the time we get a call about a company, like you already have some background,
True.
some discovery.
True.
So
We're cheating a little.
we're cheating. We're cheating a little bit. I
We don't have to tell-
kind of have an idea.
We're not cheating. We're just that smart.
Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious when you look at the floor.
Yep.
That's
Oh yeah. The visuals are strong.
yes. Yes.
We mean production floor, not the carpeting. If there's a window into the manufacturing area, you know a lot from that little glance. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't, even for a new consultant, it doesn't take
A ton. Yeah.
no time.
By your fifth one.
Yeah. For you, what are some of your tells?
Okay. So for me, you walk in, and again, you go to the little conference room, you open the door, and then half the time there's not anybody there, right? So you got no data at this point. You're locked into some little room. You call somebody or buzz somebody, or maybe there's nothing. You have to email. As soon as you actually meet the first person, you're starting gathering data. Are they expecting you? Do they know where we're going? Is there a place to go? You walk through, like, is the space over full? Like you can say like, oh, they've grown past their building. You know that right away. And they're introducing, like, oh, over here, as you walk into the conference room, this is where sales is, this is where purchasing is, this is where this is. And what they say in those cases gives you so much data. By the time, like, how organized are they? This is Frank. Frank's been here for about 20 years. He does pretty much everything. This whole place comes down to Frank. Okay. It's a human process. This is an undefined process. Like you haven't made it anywhere. They just told you up front. If you walk to the floor and you see, there's just stuff piled everywhere, and people are like walking around, this like kind of frantic look. There's probably 4 people out there that are really good, and this is like a machine shop thing to a T, or like a metal shop. There are some people who are just locked in and they know how to make things and they're awesome, and it just comes down to they're awesome. And how do you scale? We need more people who are just as awesome as that, and that's
That's not a recipe for.
that's not a recipe. That's a struggle.
Yeah.
That's a struggle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I I think of it like how difficult is it to get the right people into the boardroom?
Oh yeah,
That's one of my like
great point.
yeah, because they can't delegate or they can't like I mean, people like things come up. You have to go solve problems, but
Yeah,
like how much interruption is happening during this meeting? It's like
yeah. No, that's an excellent point.
yeah, yeah. That is quick. I remember my first time on site. It was a go live. I was we weren't at the main. This was a mid-size, medium-size wire harness company. Yeah, wire harness. Yeah. We're not on their like main parent company location. We're like a So, um, we walk in. Nobody greets us. Uh, so the door's locked. We can't get in. So we're outside. We're calling for like 30 minutes. Uh, well, so we finally get in, and then we're like, okay, who do we talk to? The person that lets us in has no idea that we're even going to be there. So like their communication is off, um, and eventually we locate their IT mate like their location
Yeah,
site IT
closet.
manager, and he doesn't give us a tour. He's like, well, hang on, I have this. He goes and grabs this piece of paper that he'd printed off with a list of usernames and passwords. It was like, good luck. They they had never logged in. They're going
Oh
live. They had
no!
never logged into their system. They had watched some like
Wow,
TV training, and so it was just this like, oh, I understand. You know,
it's like a go live in starting now.
yeah,
Project starts now.
yeah. Like I yes, I had to call. We had to call people to get into the building for a go live. That's usually like, where's the ERP guy? Like, help.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what not to do? Uh, okay, so what? How did that go? Did it get better from there?
Well, it was great. We like ran circles around the main location. Granted, like they're solving data issues and they've got to have like higher philosophical,
Yeah,
existential questions of like what are we as a business? But we're able to kind of identify, okay, here's the managers. Let's go work through stuff. So you get like you get to be scrappy, you get to move quickly. There's not like a whole lot of bureaucratic like you um but yeah, so it like that ends up being fun because they're just like, all right, let's go. We got to get it done. Um, and there's not time to second guess or think through like, well, you don't have time to fight. It's like this is how we do this. Is how you're going to do it now. So some of that was really fun.
that that's
Yeah.
that's a different cat. I have three factors for like likelihood of failure on a project, and maybe we need to add some from your thing. My three rules are like the project has no C-level involvement.
Uh-huh.
So you're going to change your ERP system, which in theory touches, pretty much every part of your business, as we are a platform for the business to run on and, to help people, build your way, as a company and do their thing. But then, we're creating a process for them. And if there's nobody who's, high up involved in that, your likelihood of failure is extremely high because people aren't going to want to do it and they're going to be able to say like, well, I don't really have to. So the IT guy's running it and he's going to try to tell people like, make sure you go do your training or make sure you do this, and they'll be like, yeah, whatever. I'm not doing it. You can't tell me what to do. So you need somebody who can say, we're doing this and it has to like everybody has to pull in the same direction. You don't have that, real bad. You still might make it. You can still make it. It's just a big risk. Number two, QuickBooks. If your company is running on QuickBooks, you're going to struggle on the ERP switch. And again, a large number of companies going from infant to adolescent, you start with accounting, you start with QuickBooks, and then they have a bunch of Google Sheets or, Excel or whatever it is. And I mean, you've seen this a million times. And then they realize, okay, well, we need something more than this. We've got to, help everybody move in the same direction. So they pick an ERP system. It's just a lot. So there's a risk there. And I think the single biggest thing about it, the reason I say QuickBooks specifically, is inventory control. And so the company in that profile has very little inventory control. They've got 4 people out on the floor who are great. They're very smart. They know how to do things.
Well, it's not that QuickBooks is the problem.
They have no issues with QuickBooks.
It's that the processes around your operations, and we go back and forth on this. And we've asked it in roundtables at trade shows, and where do you start with an ERP? It's like, well, people tend to be operations or accounting. Are you selling to the COO or the CFO? And yeah, but like QuickBooks is great as a
Yeah.
accounting package, but the problem is the maturity of the processes.
That's right.
And what you end up with is every department has an inventory spreadsheet.
Yes.
And
they're all wrong.
They're all wrong.
They're all wrong.
They'll have to be manually updated. Yep.
And so then when you say, hey, inventory is going to be part of this, obviously within Cetec ERP, inventory is going to be a thing. You're going to have to manage it. And you're going to try to do, well, we really want purchasing, we want MRP to tell us what we need to buy when so we can stay ahead of it. But we don't want to actually pick inventory or consume inventory. So purchasing wants this and production doesn't. And now you have a problem.
Well, we don't want to manage order dates.
Oh, yeah.
So, how do you know when to buy things?
You need each of these pieces of data. And so the QuickBooks thing is hard because you now have to start tracking all that data and saying, oh, when you touch inventory physically and use it, you have to tell the system. And so that's just a lot of change for a company to go through.
So yeah, operationally, it's not that QuickBooks is necessarily a problem. I think there is a whole other topic of QuickBooks and accounting and moving from QuickBooks,
100%
books, a lot of guardrails, a lot of safety, but then you need somebody that understands double entry bookkeeping and
how inventory impacts, like tracking production costs, all that stuff. Yeah.
It ends up being the spreadsheets operationally,
right?
Which they're wonderful because there's tons of flexibility.
Yeah, you can do literally anything. I just wouldn't change the cell.
Yeah. But that ultimately that inhibits you from
right. You capped your growth. And this is the capable person, the capable person on the floor who is I get things done. I don't want to touch a computer. And so when they need inventory, they walk over the shelf, they grab the inventory, and they use it, and they keep going. And they're great for shipping product. But when you have a system that now you build a process that says purchasing was struggling for us, getting the right material at the right cost at the right time, and so now we're going to use this system to do that. As soon as that guy goes and just grabs something off the shelf and returns, all your calculations on what you have, when you can build, the next order and all that stuff, they're all wrong. So if you're trusting it, you made things worse, not better. And so that shifting that skill from when you do something physically, make sure you tell the system as well. Oh man, that's one of the hallmarks of getting out of adolescence towards process maturity. But yeah, that's why, so what was my first one is no C-level. Second one is QuickBooks, because it's really just a system without inventory integrated to it.
Yeah.
My third one, and I would like to apologize here to any listeners who will be offended by my next term, North Carolina.
Well, that's, yes. That really goes to categorize.
It does.
And describe.
That's a personal anecdote.
You could easily say, if we're going to offend one state, you could easily say West Virginia.
Well, this is my own personal history in North Carolina, and what went wrong. I had two companies in North Carolina where there was no C-level involvement. They were coming from QuickBooks, and they were in North Carolina, and both failed to implement. These are maybe two of the only failed implementations I've ever seen. And the problem specifically was that their user base did not know how to use a computer. So when the C-level is not involved, they have no processes, apart from whatever they have on accounting, and nobody knew how to use a computer. So when we would say open the browser, people would kind of politely look at you. And you literally had to show them how to use the browser. And then when you want to go use the mouse, you ever watch people like look at the trackpad and then look at the screen and then look at the trackpad and look at the screen?
Oh, yeah. Where like you're sitting with the receiving clerk of like, all right, now you're gonna move over and click this button, and then the slow move. Missed it, missed it, missed it.
Look, you move the.
And then when they start to move fast, they click the wrong button. It's like, forget it. Oh, we got it. All right. Let me go back this out. We'll try it again.
Yeah, and they tell you, this system is really slow. You're like, it'll get faster as you get used to, and you compare that. I was in, I guess, Raleigh Durham for something, some go live, somebody else, and all those guys, I was like, we're breaking the North Carolina. These guys they'd clearly spent their time online. They were flying through the system. So, not to pick on North Carolina, other than my own history there, if the people, and hopefully, I like to think that we as a society spend a lot of time needlessly clicking online. Um, Makes it easier for me to train people to use ERP software. So
Yeah, I think yeah, the C level involvement is interesting because I think there's different ways that surfaces, different symptoms of that. I'd be curious, like your info. The fourth or one that I'm thinking of right now is like it's similar to North Carolina. It's cultural based. There's just this resistance to change
oh yeah,
that like that starts at the C level.
definitely
You
culture.
C level like not having somebody that understands the details or the weeds and like or even is just consistently like enforcing the project, but like that's what I see is like the C level person is like, okay, here's the ERP, hands it off to IT person, you're gonna go. So like in theory, you have C level involvement. Like we're back to this,
Yeah, yeah,
but
really.
nobody really wants to like an ERP is a structured set of data. It requires structured processes and has best practices and right ways to and wrong ways to do things. Even though like you try to create like configurable kind of choose your path things, but yeah, resistance to change is like
Yeah, it's just gonna make it hard
yeah.
for sure.
I mean that's where I've seen
That's the like you're the to do an ERP conversion, you're like the bad news bears. Like you walk in there and you're the person who's going to like basically change everything they do.
yeah.
Oh, this is what you're gonna do all day from now on. The way you used to do it is gonna be this way now. Who's happy about that? I mean, some people are, but most are not.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I get it. Yeah. And that often that partners with spreadsheets
Business
or
partners.
business partners, or a company's spreadsheets and like old legacy, hyper custom, hyper specific ERP systems.
The goal for me when I'm thinking, like I'm working with this company, the thing that I want to do for them is usually give them a path so that their processes become defined enough that multiple people could do them. And I think there's something to say for company growth being able to take this like sea of stuff that happens and define it, get enough structure around it that it can be easily handed off. An anecdote on this was a company selling military aerospace connectors. They were actually a distributor with some light manufacturing, but it's the distribution side that was struggling at the time. And there's these, you ever see those ring connectors? There's the two sides, and they they come together, and there's X number of pins inside this ring, and then when you turn the thing and it screws on. Um, so I think it was for military helicopters specifically in this use case, and the number of pins, there's like a 51 pin and a 53 pin. They were next to each other, so they had all their inventory. Nicely beautiful warehouse. Everything's in exactly the right spot. Alphabetical part names. You could go to whatever it is. So naturally, in that case, these are almost identical connectors, 51 and 53, and they're right next to each other in this warehouse. And process wise, you teach somebody like, oh, I've been here long enough. I know to always double and triple check 51, 53. And so you embed that knowledge in somebody's brain, and then they can do it. And in this case, they were in trouble because they had shipped the wrong one, um, like twice in a year. Uh, which, if it was baseball, their numbers would be really, really good. In this case, two out of however many thousand was an absolute disaster, and they were going to lose this business. So we came out there and we looked at the problem, analyzed it with them, and on the pick parts screen, so you have an order and you have all these parts you have to pick, and so they're going and finding it, going to that spot in the warehouse, picking it. We added a lock on that screen, so they physically had to scan the barcode of the part, um, and then they could pick it. And so it would flash bright red if it was wrong, and give like a nice soothing feng shui green if it was good. Um, and that helped. The other thing we did is we took their nice organized parts, and we hid all the parts. We took everything over here and just randomly mixed everything up, so they weren't next to each other anymore, and they couldn't find them. So then they have to ask the system, where is the dang part? I don't know where it is anymore. You jerks moved everything on me. Like, that's right. So that now we just tell you, go here, scan the barcode, it'll go green, and pick 5 of them. And they did. And they stopped having quality problems, which is great. The other thing that happened is they got faster.
So everything moved to the front of the warehouse.
They got faster. Well, they stopped going and looking for which part it was, because they had to trust the system. It's going to be row 5, shelf 2, box 5.
Well, you're not assigning like a dedicated spot anymore. You're like, I'm going to put this receipt, this lot, this heat in this bin, and I'm going to tell the system with a scan. And so your common parts move to the front, but then you stop. Yeah, you stop having to think about where does this go, where should it go.
Reading parts, looking for it. It just you just go there. It's like the Dewey Decimal System. I mean, you just you're looking for your book in the library, and you're like,
Yeah, I've heard on uh, operations manager location said this well. It's like what your goal is to get the ERP to manage 80% of the business. The system should be managing all the easy cases. So you should be trying to make all those little things. You're removing the thought process around all these things, so that your people on the floor are just like they're moving faster, and your managers are now focusing on the 20% of exceptions and problem cases.
yeah, exactly right. And that C gets siloed into, now to pick these parts, you don't need to know anything about connectors. You don't need to know 51 or 53. You just need to be able to say, hey, you go to this box and scan it. It'll say red or green and pick the number. That's all it takes now. So, yeah, if you can define a really good process, and help our users do that, then they have what they need to be faster and to grow more easily.
Uh-huh. Well, then you get reliable, easy data for like a manager to report on. Like now you can measure efficiency because like you know what to expect, and you can track non-conformances, and like it starts to that
Momentum.
you get some pinwheel, like it's a
Pinwheel?
pinwheel
Flywheel.
flywheel. You get it's a flywheel. You get a flywheel. Like on the QuickBooks topic.
Yeah.
I know this is worth its own like episode, and like let's actually talk to an expert on this. Is the impact of operations to finances
Yes.
directly, right? And so that's part of the problem with QuickBooks because it's just separated.
Necessarily, right?
Mhm.
Unless you're.
But I think you're gonna get that in some like larger, more established ERPs that are like, well, we're the financial system, but
Yeah, I'm not going to name names on that, but I have a strong opinion of. This is one of the things that I think is distinctive for how we attempt to target Cetec ERP is, I think we have a thesis that your ROI is mostly going to be found on your operations side. If you make operations more effective, that's where the bulk of your ROI is. And so product focus wise, um, I think we probably put the most effort on operations. If we can, and definitely on a go live, that's the thing I care most about. I need the numbers to match. I need the accounting to work. I need the accounting to be, stable and accurate. And so, okay, let's talk about reconciles. Let's talk about auditing. Let's talk about all this stuff. Great. But where I really want to put my focus with a company is let's go look at your ops. Let's go look at the thing that you have the most manpower on. If we increase your throughput there, that you got 100 people on the floor, you have 2 people in accounting, hopefully. You tell me that's a ding. If you have 8 people in accounting, you're already like this is an imbalance. You're dealing with inefficiency there. But yeah, like if just 100 people versus 2, that's where that's where I want my time to go.
Like the point of looking at like a P&L is you're trying to catch inefficiencies operationally. Like you're just chasing it backwards. So like if you don't have a system that's going to effectively collect and easily collect, it's like how are you going to get people on the floor to adopt a process?
It's this horrible.
So if you can't collect it, how do you trace it back? How do you like where's your sub ledger that you can like you might have a great like looking financial report and those are all valuable, but like on a small business scale, who are you reporting that data to?
So that is, I think, actually an excellent adolescent point. An adolescent company is hopefully at the point where they are learning. Your initial thing is like, how much money is in the bank? That's like your infant. Like, I don't know, man. Are you making money, losing money? I don't know, but I got this much in the bank. Yeah. And then, like, the more mature you are, the more you can identify activities that are helping you or hurting you. And there's like, man, there's so much about that. The whole like, you can't manage it if you can't measure it. All these like, consultant tropes start coming out of the woodwork here. But there is something to say for you need to know. This is like a labor, a early career.
Yeah. I don't know where you're going.
Gosh, they were very, very confident. They knew where their labor time was being spent, and insisted up and down. The CEO actually insisted that he knew very, very diligently all these labor numbers. The engineers, they insisted they knew. The production managers insisted they knew.
We've done time studies.
Know exactly where this one is. We're happy to just go with estimates. And eventually, for other reasons they needed to track, I think on the traceability side, who was touching what, they started logging using our time logging, our production stuff. And it was they had 4 minutes of labor as their estimate on this part, and it was 4 hours was the average that they were spending, and they thought they were selling at great profit, and in reality, this product that they were shipping tons of was just killing their numbers. It was killing them, and they had no idea. So, I like to think that's maybe weird,
yeah,
but you just don't know. Like if you're not measuring it. I don't know. What do you got? How do you know? You don't. Maybe.
Yeah.
So that's where, it's if you can get to the point, if I can convince people to actually have production logged to an order, then you get the traceability. You know who did it. You can help drive consistent process. It's like, well, we only need it for some products. This one's medical, so we need it, but this one's not. So we don't like a contract manufacturer if they've got different customer requirements. Just be consistent. Just do it, and it's not a time thing. It's a culture thing, and you learn things. Well, thank you for joining us at the Cetec ERP podcast, and until we see you next time, continue to build your way.
Follow us on major platforms. Like us on our
please like us. Don't dislike us.
Follow us on all major platforms. Leave a review, and if you have a question or a topic you want to include,
send us an email. Which is podcast at
ctecerp.com.
ctecerp.com. Love to hear from you.